We've been immensely privileged over the years to have travelled right across the globe, and what follows is just a snapshot of some of those places Barbara and I have visited. Oh, how I'd like to spend more time with you in Oman. It's a jewel of a destination and deserves a film of its own, which will follow. But because we loved it so much, I'd like to give you a taste of it today. Why were we taken with such a barren location? Well, it has an arid beauty of its own, lovely people, and is a haven of tranquility in the Middle East. It's also the land of the boswellia tree, more commonly known as the frankincense tree. The bark is peeled back, and as the resin oozes out, it dries in the sun into little nuggets on the trunk. These are collected, and they're heated on charcoal to release the distinctive aromatic aroma. You can just imagine how the three wise men could acquire such a gift as they crossed the trade routes coming from the east. Oman is also an adventurous place to hike. The terrain can be challenging and spectacular. This balcony walk, for instance, led to a remote village, tucked under the overhang in the wall of this deep ravine. The village is long since abandoned. Further south and west, the rugged and rocky desert gives way to the sand dunes of the empty quarter, as the sand dunes stretch endlessly across Arabia, on the border with Saudi Arabia and the Yemen. And a night camping in the wild and watching the sun go down from the top of a sand dune is an experience not to be missed, and very different from visiting the lavish Grand Mosque in Muscat. But there is so much more to tell you. The mountain villages and their 2,500-year-old Falaj irrigation systems, and the palm plantations and the wonderful medjool dates. The crumbling adobe houses and the benevolence of the Sultan will all have to wait for another time. As I said, this is just a taste of this enchanting country, which hopefully has whetted your appetite to want to know more. And so, moving on to a very different location, Laos, in Southeast Asia. The airport in Pask sits alongside one of the world's great rivers, the Mekong. The Mekong rises high on the Tibetan Plateau and runs for 2,700 miles through China, Laos and Cambodia, before spilling into the South China Sea through its delta in Vietnam. Pask is not the capital of Laos, Vientiane is, but Pask is the largest town in the south and our jumping off point to cycle downriver through countless villages before crossing into Cambodia. Perhaps the least well known of the Southeast Asian countries, Laos has been left behind by the rest of Indochina. Even the French, who colonised Laos for 60 years up until 1953, didn't develop the country as they had elsewhere in the region. Tourism in 2008, the year we visited, was less than half what it is today and a mere fraction of that in neighbouring Thailand. So enjoy with us now the landscape and the people, the river crossings and the ferries as we make our way downriver. It all paints a romantic picture. Including the sight of the Mekong pouring through the Kong Pha Phang Falls, close to the Cambodian border. But such innocence comes at a price. Laos is poor, and life expectancy for these excited and fun-loving children is just 63. If they lived in England today, they could expect to live until they're nearly 90.
Very good.
As we arrive at the Cambodian border, there are a few formalities to complete before we can ride on down this excellent road built by China. Generous of them, you might say, but essentially it's to give them access to the sea. The big attraction for tourists in Cambodia is the temple complex of Angkor Wat, the world's largest religious site. Originally built over the centuries as a Hindu temple, it became Buddhist in the 12th century and remains so today. Such is the status and the grandeur of this ancient site. It appears on the Cambodian flag. We were very glad to have been able to visit such an historic, indeed World Heritage site. But Cambodia is so much more than a pile of crumbling stones. There are the Buddhist shrines, and the grandeur of the Royal Palace in Phnom Penh. There's a Tonle Sap. This vast lake is essentially a floodplain for the Mekong. These homes are built on stilts. Because in the monsoon rains, the lake grows threefold in size and in depth. Village after village we travelled through was busy with everyday life, each specialising in different skills from weaving, carpentry, and even the boiling of sap from the palm tree to form blocks of sweet palm sugar. It was all in sharp contrast to our expectation. We had feared that the country was still scarred from the genocide suffered under the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot in the 1970s. But it wasn't to be. Instead, the Cambodia we visited was young.
Goodbye.
And the food was not just plentiful, but delicious. So much so that our group booked an impromptu cookery lesson when we were forced to stay on for a few extra days because Bangkok airport was closed by protesters. One of the hazards of long-haul travel.
Good to see you.